Hello everybody, it's Victoria here, and I am finally going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I was tagged like a million years ago by Lauren from Offbeat Book Digest, and I just have been slacking in doing tags. I have like so many tags that I need to film. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, so here I am today again with the mid-year book freakout tag. So the first question is your favorite book of this year so far. I had a few runners up. This includes The Grace of Kings, which technically I am not finished with, but I'm enjoying it so much. Also Prince of Shadows by Rachel Caine and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. But the ultimate prize for the best book so far has to go to The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a fantastic book. Not only is it a great YA book, it is just a great book in general. It will make you laugh. It will make you cry. If you didn't know, this has been all over the place, but this is a book that was inspired by the Black Lives Movement. This is an important book, but as I said, it is also a great work of fiction. The characters in this are so vital and realistic that reading this, it was almost as if I were reading a true story as opposed to a fictional piece of work. I highly recommend you read this. Even if you don't normally pick up YA, this is still a great book and a very insightful book and fantastic. The second question is your favorite sequel that you've read so far this year. So I do have one runner-up, and that is Thick as Thieves by Megan Whalen Turner. This is the fifth book, I think, in the Queen's Thieves series, and I've loved all of these books, and this is no exception. I really did enjoy this. We follow a slave that is escaping from the Empire and his journey throughout the land trying not to be captured, with some plot twists. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a Queen's Thief novel. But my number one pick is actually going to be Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is a YA fantasy novel, and it's kind of sort of a heist book where we follow 6 different characters and their points of view as they try to navigate the waters of Ketterdam and not get caught up in the scheming of one of the main merchants in the city. I enjoyed the first one in this duology. I gave it 4 out of 5, though I did have some issues with it. I didn't love it, I think maybe as many as other people. Again, it was a solid 4 for me, but then when I read this, oh boy, I was blown away. Everything that I didn't particularly love about that first one was solved in this one. I think this is just a really fantastic read. It was clever, inventive, and the characters, goodness me, the characters are fantastic in this. I absolutely would recommend, if you like the first one, move on to the second one, because this is, for me, a 5 out of 5. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet, but want to, and that is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is an adult fantasy. I believe it is grimdark. It's been getting some great reviews. It has a female protagonist, but the main thing that I want to read this for is 2 words. Are you ready? Assassin nuns. Boom. The next question is the most anticipated release of the second half of 2017. Honestly, guys, I don't really keep track of like what's coming out, what are new releases. So I just went into my to read list on Goodreads and found some things that hadn't been released yet and that were going to be released then. And the one that I came up with is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. So this is an adult fantasy that takes place in Cairo in Egypt, but in the past. So we are going to get fantasy elements like jinn, and our main character is going to be a female thief. So this sounds really interesting and exciting. I love fantasies that take place outside of our European medieval traditional fantasy setting. Plus I love having a female main character, and it sounds like there's going to be sort of a hierarchy within jinn society, so I'm excited for this one. Next up is our biggest disappointment of 2017 so far. And the runner-up for me is going to be Last Song Before Night by Ilana C. Meyer. This is an adult fantasy. It has so many elements that I really wanted. It's a standalone. It's not too long. It has a female protagonist. Musical bards are kind of the magicians of this realm, but it just didn't live up to its potential. And I was really disappointed because I really, really wanted to love this. But I have a tie for the 2 most disappointing books. So first one is going to be The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. Don't hate me, don't hate me. I was disappointed because this had such glowing reviews on Goodreads and it's so popular on BookTube and everybody just raves about this, but I swear I must have got a different version of this book than everybody else because I just did not enjoy it. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. So disappointed again because the hype around this book was so high. And even people that I have similar tastes with and follow their reviews on Goodreads, they really like this too. So I was ready for it. I was ready to love it. And unfortunately, I just didn't. My other big disappointment for this year I just read, and that is actually A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is an adult fantasy, the second book in the series, and the reason that this is disappointing is I read the first one. I enjoyed it. I gave that one 4 out of 5. It did have some issues, but this second book just took those issues and magnified it times like 1,000. So things that were kind of annoying me in the first book or that I didn't love or had some questions about just, again, magnified them in this book. And so I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5. Super disappointing because I love the setup in the first book. And again, this is very hyped as well. Just didn't love it. Super disappointed. Then we have the biggest surprise. And so my runner-up is going to be The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is not a well-loved novel, shall I say kindly. A lot of people find the main character off-putting, and I have seen reviews where people talk about the series as a whole and say, no, you need to read the whole thing. There's a lot of character growth throughout, but no, you're not going to like this first book. Well, I like this first book a lot, actually. I really, really enjoyed it. And so that was a huge surprise to me. I went into it thinking I just needed to like plow through it and get to the other ones, but I super enjoyed this. So this was a big surprise. But my number one surprise is actually The Prince of Shadows by Rachel Kane. This is marketed as a YA retelling of Romeo and Juliet. I don't love Romeo and Juliet. It's not my favorite Shakespeare play. I love the tragedy and, of course, the wordsmithing involved. But the actual love between the two I never really bought. And Rachel Kane, I had read a book before by her. It was Ill Winds, which is the first in the Weather Warden series, which is a paranormal romance with Jinn, and it was fine. I gave it 3 stars, but I didn't continue on with the series and certainly wasn't blown away by that. So I entered this with a little trepidation. I wasn't sure I was going to like it, and I loved it. Oh my goodness, this was so good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The writing is fantastic. It walks the line between being sort of very Shakespearean, trying to imitate that style, and then also being modern. So she does a wonderful job of that. The characterization in here is phenomenal. And she fixes what I didn't like about Romeo and Juliet. She fixes it. Oh my goodness. As I said, at first I was worried, Rachel Kane trying to take on Shakespeare, but I think she did it in such a masterful, wonderful way. I also think that this is mismarketed. I don't think that this should be sold as a YA. I think it has more wide appeal than that, and if anything, I think that maybe teens might not like it that much. It's very different from other YA out there. So I would really recommend this if you don't like Romeo and Juliet, or you do like Romeo and Juliet. I think either one can get a lot out of this. The next question is our favorite new author, either a debut or new to me. So for runner-up, I'm going to say Angie Thomas from The Hate U Give, but the winner is actually going to be Ken Liu, Grace of Kings. So I am in the middle of this. I haven't finished it yet, but I have read enough to know that he is fantastic. Oh my goodness. It's amazing he can handle this entire gigantic world and multiple characters and yet get you to care about all of them and weave a cohesive story and make sure that everything kind of lines up. And it's just fantastic. I'm loving this so far, and I look forward to reading more by him, and I really suggest everybody check him out. Next is Newest Fictional Crush, and that is nobody. I didn't really read anything that had crush-worthy people in it, I guess. So let's move on to the next question. Newest favorite character, and I'm going to say Casbreaker from Crooked Kingdom. He is wonderful. He's sort of your anti-hero. He is very much delving into shades of gray morally, and he's ambitious, and he is also very much a schemer and a planner, and I absolutely appreciate that. I love a wonderfully executed plan. So I can get behind a lot of the things that he does. I think he's fantastic. And again, like I said, he has that wonderful ability to be very loyal to his friends and yet kind of engage in dubious activities, criminalistic activities. So I definitely enjoyed reading about him, and he is my new fave character. Next up, we have Book That Made You Cry. So as much as I hate emotion and talking about emotion, I actually cry very easily with books. So I actually have a list. Hold on. So these are the runners-up of books that made me cry. We have Grace of Kings, Prince of Shadows, Crooked Kingdom, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. But I'm going to go with my number one as The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So again, this is such a good book. I just really, really enjoyed it. I'm just gonna sound like a broken record where I'm like, please check out this book. It's amazing, but that's the truth. And I definitely cried. Like I said, I laughed too. I ran the emotional gamut through this one. So highly encourage you to check it out. And the next is a book that made you happy. I'm actually going to go with something in a genre that I very rarely read, but it was recommended all over BookTube and I decided to pick it up. And that is Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda. And this was such a fun, cute book. It does deal with some not so fun issues. There is blackmail going on, but for some reason, I just absolutely loved this book and was so happy when I finished it. I think Becky Albertalli does a wonderful job of portraying teenagers and their relationships realistically. I believe she is a therapist and has worked with teenagers, specifically LGBTQI+. And I think it shows because these characters are so realistic and their relationships, how their dynamic changes when different outside elements are introduced. And again, like I said, just so much fun. Glad I kind of was out of my comfort zone and decided to pick this up. Moving on, our next item is our favorite book to movie adaptation. I guess I'm gonna go with Hidden Figures. I really like the movie, but I didn't read the book. And I don't think I've seen any other movies that are based on books. So I'm gonna go with that one. Good movie. I don't know if it's a good book, but good movie, check it out. Then the next is our favorite video that we've done so far this year. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know. And I definitely don't want to go back and have to like look at my old videos that I did because that's awkward. So I'm just gonna say all of them. Every time I put up a video, I am proud of myself for putting myself out there. Every new video that I put out there is my favorite just because one more time I was able to put myself forward on the internet. The next is the most beautiful book that we've bought or received, and that is The Wolf Wilder. This is a middle grade story that takes place in Russia and deals with Russian wolves, obviously. But it deals with retraining Russian wolves, and the main character's mother gets kidnapped and she has to find her. But it's just it's so beautiful. And I know it doesn't come up so perfectly on camera, but it's just gorgeous. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And then finally, books we need to read by the end of this year. So I'm not one of those people that has like a TBR or concrete reading plans or anything. I'm very much a mood reader. I pick up whatever appeals to me at that moment in time. So there's nothing that I need to read. There's a few things that I do want to. I want to read the sequel to The Grace of Kings, which is The Wall of Storms, because I'm enjoying that so much. I definitely want to pick that up. I also want to finish out the Greatcoat series by Sebastian de Castell. I read the first two in this, so I still need to read Saint's Blood and Tyrant's Throat, and that actually just came out. And I'm trying to find that like for cheaper or wait till the library gets it, and they haven't gotten it yet, and I'm just waiting for them to get it so I can finish out the series. But other than that, I don't really have any books that I need to read. And I tag everyone who hasn't done this yet. So all two of you, go out there and do it, because I know everybody's done this. I know it's taken me forever to do this, but I had a lot of fun, and I thank you again, Lauren, for tagging me. If you haven't already, please go check out her channel. She's fantastic, and she definitely deserves some love. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.